Well, Steve, you've covered the entertainment angle and the aesthetics for us, and so we appreciate the intro. That was well done. Now to the nuts and bolts. What came as a surprise? What were your first takeaways?
Well, they have Georgia #1, and then they have Ohio State #2. So there's your gratuitous Kirby Smart, big picture of him in Georgia #1. And then Ohio State #2. What is it? Texas 3. So 2 teams from the SEC, right there. And then Oregon 4, from a second one from the Big Ten. Ole Miss. Now, the next time our good friend Lane Kiffin does anything this big will be the first time, obviously. Michigan 6. Do you know when you flip to the page on Michigan in this magazine, which I will do right now, when you turn to the page for the Big Ten about Michigan in the Big Ten section, they have 2 pages on Michigan, the reigning, defending national champions in all of college football. 15-0 they went, it says here. 15-0. My God, they had a great year. Like Gary from the Old Town Tavern says to the guys at Cheers, I didn't think you had it in you. I mean, that's, when they got Wade Boggs or whatever it was, the whole thing. They got him on a joke was the deal. They were trading jokes back and forth, and Gary comes over and tells Sam and Carla and everybody, I didn't think you had it in you. I honestly didn't think they had this in them, but they did. I digress. Let me read you the returning starters for the University of Michigan. They have a tight end, number 18, Colston Loveland, 6'5", 245-pound junior, indentured servant. Otherwise, he'd be in the NFL. Let's see. They have a defensive tackle, 55, Mason Graham, 6'3", 318-pound junior, indentured servant, or he would be in the NFL. By that, I mean they have to stay 3 years. Cornerback, number 2, Will Johnson, everybody's All-American. And I thought it was a ripoff that they gave whatever the DB award to Cooper DeJean, who didn't win a meaningful game all season. This guy, Will Johnson, was legitimate to me. So 6'2", 202 pounds, junior, indentured servant, or he'd be in the NFL. And then strong safety, number 7, Makari Page, 6'4", 208. Wow, he's a heavy hitter. Senior. Those are the 4, count them, 4 returning starters for the University of Michigan. They do have Donovan Edwards, who did chew up and spit out Ohio State a couple of years ago back at running back to replace Blake Corum, and they kind of split time a little bit. But, I don't see how they do it. I don't know. You're counting on too many first-year people, and this is going to be Ohio State in 2025. There'll be about 4 people in bold print on the Ohio State list next year, and then a bunch of transfers coming in from South Carolina or, Syracuse or Boston College or wherever they can find help. They're going to have the help wanted sign out there in December, looking for help for 2025. So, to me, I don't know how they do it. I don't know how you put them 6th. And I don't know how you expect that team to win 10 games. I don't see it. Somebody could tell me, I admit Graham and Johnson are potential All-Americans, no question. And they're going to have to play like it to pull that team along, in my opinion. So that was probably the biggest takeaway I had from that magazine was, why in the hell is Michigan number 6? Do people not take into account that you can't replace 18 starters and expect to win at nearly the same clip? I don't know.
I would tend to go along with you, Steve, but it's almost like when there are complaints about who got left out of the NCAA tournament, and then the next statement is, of course, in question, well, who do you kick out to bring in? So Tony, where do you think Michigan's placed in regards to your perspective, and who should be higher?
Well, as Steve knows, a great man once said, to be the man, you've got to beat the man.
The nature boy.
So, old Nate said it, but I think 6 is high. And I understand they lose a bunch of starters. They've got a bunch of guys that have a ton of experience. They got a starting offensive lineman from Northwestern. All of the guys on the defensive line have played a ton. Josiah Stewart has been a starter forever and was a guy that was an effective pass rusher for him last year. Derek Moore has been playing forever at defensive end. Kenneth Grant is a big dude and is right up there with some of the attention that Mason Graham is getting. And they've got linebackers with starting experience from other schools. I think the safety situation and the secondary is a concern that I have for them because you've lost Rod Moore. You're not as deep at corner as you would like to be. And once again, you're relying on players from smaller schools coming in to try and lift up that room. So I think secondary is a concern. Offensively, I have no idea. I don't know. Are all of their receivers 2s or 3s? Is there a 1 in there? I don't know. I think the number 1 is Colston Loveland maybe, but the defenses know that. So he's going to need some help. Donovan Edwards needs to get back to the 2022 Donovan Edwards because the 2023 Donovan Edwards 4 yards of carry is not going to cut it. So we got to figure out which is the real one. I think he was dealing with injuries last year. But their schedule, it's Texas at home week 2. I think everybody expects Texas. Everybody that isn't a Michigan fan expects Texas to win that game. Then you've got to go to, they should lose to Ohio State. It's in Columbus. That should be a loss there. The Oregon game at home, I think most people expect that to be Oregon right now outside of the Michigan fandom. So if there are 3, I don't think a 3-loss Michigan is necessarily getting in because if they lose those 3 games, they have no win to trump any of those losses. And so they need to win one of those 3 to get in. And if they don't win any of those 3, I don't see them getting in. And I was a little surprised with the playoff picks from Lindy's. They've got 5 SEC teams in. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but 5 just seems like a lot, and only 3 Big Ten teams with Ohio State, Oregon, and Michigan. Although some of these matchups in the first round, like I wouldn't mind seeing Alabama at Michigan in the first round. I'd be in favor of that one.
Yeah. I was going to say, look at their schedule. They also play USC at home and they go at Washington, which is kind of a mirror image of Michigan. The 2 teams that played for the national championship both lost everybody. The coach and everybody is gone. So they're kind of mirror images of one another. But do you expect them to go to Seattle, Washington and win that game? I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know what Washington's got. So yeah, their playoff matchups, Georgia, Ohio State, obviously 1 and 2. Then you don't put Texas, which is their number 3 team, at number 3 because the 4 highest placing conference champions get the prevailing seeds in the first round buys. So the winners essentially of the SEC, Big Ten, ACC, and Big 12 championship games are going to be 1 through 4. They have Florida State winning the ACC and Oklahoma State winning the watered down Big 12. And then, although, you trade out Texas and Oklahoma, but you do get Utah in that bargain. So, kind of a half step back, perhaps. Certainly in name and TV viewership and whatever, they're taking a huge hit. Their first round games, they have Liberty as the group of 5 team that gets in as the 5th conference champion. They Conference USA. Does that sound right?
Liberty is, Are they? Is that USA?
Yes.
Or?
Okay. And they would play number 5.
Go ahead.
They would play at Texas. They would play at number 5, Texas. Missouri. Number 11 would play at number 6, Oregon. Number 10, Notre Dame. At number 7, Ole Miss. And then, as Tony said, number 9, Alabama. At number 8, Michigan. And then as you go through, the Fiesta Bowl would be Oklahoma State versus Texas. The Peach Bowl would be Georgia versus Michigan. The Rose Bowl, January 1st, would be Ohio State versus Ole Miss. And the Sugar Bowl would be Florida State against Oregon. And then the semifinals are in Miami and Dallas. The Miami one, the Orange Bowl, they would have Georgia against Texas. And then the Cotton Bowl in Dallas is Ohio State versus Oregon. And then obviously Georgia versus Ohio State. They've got Georgia winning 27-17 over Ohio State. No trip to the White House for the Buckeyes to see either Biden or Trump in the spring of 2025.
RFK Jr., baby.
What's that?
RFK Jr.?
Yeah. Something will happen. Something will happen that will throw a wrench into all this at some point. And, usually it involves a team like Ole Miss. Yeah. Usually it involves a team like Ole Miss or Texas A&M not playing up, or Florida State playing up to what you thought they were going to. So anything that Jimbo Fisher has ever touched never comes to fruition, except that one time it did. So
one of the things in these projections is Georgia gets to play 2 of their playoff games in Atlanta, and one in the quarterfinals, and the others in the national championship game, which isn't a bad deal for them. It also appears as though they have Ohio State and Oregon playing 3 times.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think you could set the over-under on 1.5, and I would probably take the over on that this year between those 2 teams. At some point, they will meet again outside of Autzen Stadium.
Yeah.
Ooh, Ed Rogers, Michigan will play in the Pinstripe Bowl. I read it, but I didn't say it. That's you, Ed. That's you saying it.
That's you guys.
I'm giving the Maize and Blue a little bit more respect. I think that 9.5 number is fairly on track. Gun to head, I'm going under. I'm going 9-3 right now as it stands, but I think it's a close call. And as has been pointed out in the chat, if you run through the models of previous seasons and throw them into the 12 team, 10-2 in the Big Ten, it gets you in. 9-3 is a probability against, but you've got a shot. Mm-hmm. And as Tony outlines, if they lose the 3 that we're talking about, and USC's like a 7-5, 8-4 team, then they don't have that win. But again, being a guy that likes the odds, I take Michigan in one of those 3.
I don't have a huge issue with that. I think they will be underdogs in all 3 of those. But you've got 2 of them at home. You shouldn't lose both of those at home. You should be able to beat somebody, and maybe getting Texas early is a good thing for the defense, but maybe it's a bad thing for Alex Orji. But also Texas won't have much of a chance to look at what Alex Orji does and what they do on offense. So I feel like maybe getting Texas early is getting them early better than getting them in like October. It's a non-conference game, so it wouldn't really happen, but the less you know about Michigan, maybe the better for Michigan right now.
The biggest question for me with Michigan, beyond personnel that Steve outlined, is more about who are they going to be on offense? And their quarterback decision to me is more about who do you want to be on offense as opposed to who is the better quarterback. If you select Davis Warren or Jack Tuttle, then you are selecting to be the Michigan of yesteryear. You are the play action team that is run heavy, throw it to the tight end, and there you go. You are basically an upgraded Iowa. Or you transform yourself to being an Alex Orji-led, let's run it, let the quarterback run and improvise and design a ton of plays for him, and you're a different deal. And so for me, the decision at quarterback is going to be intriguing, and it's going to lead us into knowing what Michigan's offense is going to look like.
Well, I also wonder about Oregon's defense. I see people talking about it in the chat as well. It's not like their defense has been outstanding, and I don't know how much more outstanding it will be this year, and so they've had issues, but it's, you know, you're talking about Michael Penix giving them issues, and USC giving them issues in terms of points, and I don't see either of those players coming back for Michigan this year. But also, it's a home game. It's going to be an incredible environment. It's a conference game at home, and if you are good, you should win those games. Like, if you are like a decent team, you should win your home games. If you're a good team, you should win your home games, and unless something crazy happens. But I don't know where I'm going to be for that game, whether it's in the press box or sitting in a hotel room or whatever. But that's a game that I'm definitely interested in seeing, because it will tell us. It'll tell us a lot about Michigan, but also it'll give us another good idea of what Oregon is in terms of their situation in the Big Ten, their ability to handle that kind of adversity in November. And, you know, it also depends on what Michigan is by that point. Have they already lost a game or two games? I don't think they will have at that point. And they're probably still going to be pretty confident. And even if they lose the Texas game, I think they'll be over it by then, and they'll be confident again. And, you know, that's going to be a fun one for sure.